station, WTIM.
It is time now for the WTIM Morning Show right here on WTIM, your information station. I'm Tim Zalabak, your host of it. Thanks so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. On the phone line, we have Illinois State Senator Steve McClure of the 54th District. How are you today, Senator?
I'm well. Great to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you back in the studio. And we've had some really busy political past couple of weeks here. So let's just get right into it. Right now, Democratic National Convention. Before we really get into it, just generally, what have you been hearing? What kind of things have you been taking away?
Well, from my perspective, a lot of people are talking about Governor Pritzker's involvement, and he gave his big speech yesterday, bragging that he, unlike Donald Trump, he was able to inherit billions of dollars from his family, which is a very odd thing to brag about when you're giving a speech at a national convention, but that seems to be his only qualification for being governor. I'm not sure the people of Illinois have found his administration to be all that great. And, I think we need to maybe elect people that have actually had other accomplishments other than inheriting wealth. So that was interesting to see. It's the typical fanfare that you get at a convention, and Vice President Harris is still in the middle of her honeymoon phase. But I'm looking forward to when she and President Trump debate each other on September 10th, and then she won't have all these surrogates speaking for her. She'll have to actually stand on her own 2 feet, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And a couple things to break down right there, starting with Governor J.B. Pritzker. It seemed a little weird, the billionaire account right there, and especially knowing Illinois' past with economy. How are voters supposed to hear that, especially if you are in between? What do you take away from that?
It's arrogant, it's snobby, and it's not an accomplishment to inherit money. No. If another recent comment he made was he was saying, well, he's a winner unlike Donald Trump, except for the fact that Governor Pritzker actually lost his first race. He ran for Congress years ago. He outspent his opponents like 100-1 or something crazy, and he finished third place in a three-way Democrat primary for Congress. And if you recall, in his most recent race for governor, he spent $35 million. That's $35 million in the Republican primary to support the candidate that he wanted to run against. And so he got his chosen candidate to become the Republican nominee for governor, and then he beat him by over 10 points. So, throwing your money around to win political races is not exactly an accomplishment. And it's just bizarre because Illinois has so many problems right now that we can all work together to solve. And instead of doing that, Governor Pritzker wants to go tell everybody that he's rich and he's a real winner, even though he's only rich because he inherited money. And he's lost plenty of times from what I've seen.
How about that scene in Chicago right now? There's a lot of security out there. There's protests happening. There's so much personnel. Have you been hearing any conversations about it?
Yes, I've talked to some people that I know in the area, and they're wondering why they're not getting this protection every day. Chicago is one of the most violent cities in our country. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. There's lots of wonderful people in Chicago, and they deserve to have a city that is safe, that is not ridden with crime. And they shouldn't only have that type of a city over the course of a few days for a Democratic convention. I would hope that Governor Pritzker and the mayor of Chicago would also prioritize their safety after the convention's over with. But I suspect that they're going to take all the security, all the barriers away, and then you're going to have the crime and the murders and everything else continue, which is really sad.
Yeah. You spoke briefly on that September 10th debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris there. And both have different roots right now in terms of like their media coverage. I'm seeing former President Donald Trump out at various podcasts answering questions from media, and you're seeing kind of different routes from Kamala Harris there. Do you have any words to say on these different types of routes that they're taking?
Well, President Trump has tried to answer questions and be out there. And Vice President Harris has not. And if you look at what happened when she first ran for president in the Democrat primary, where she received no delegates and had to drop out pretty much instantly, the more people saw her, the less they liked her. And after each one of her debate performances, she would drop in the polls even further. And she was already very far down in the polls. So their strategy is keep her hidden as much as possible, have lots of people say wonderful things about her, including her allies in the media, and then hopefully she can stay in a basement and then win just like Joe Biden did 4 years ago. That's kind of the plan. I predict that when she starts having to go debate President Trump and having to be out there more in the media, people are going to find her to be very unlikable, and we'll see what happens once that occurs.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see there. Now, back to this Democratic National Convention, what are some of the policies we're hearing right now? Is there anything changing, anything that's having your eyebrows raised?
Well, I think the biggest eyebrow raise is how many times that President Trump is being mentioned. I think I read something and President Biden was mentioned at the Republican convention just a handful of times. Meanwhile, President Trump, they've mentioned him like almost 200 times.
Oh.
But I think that anybody should look at that and say to themselves, why aren't the Democrats talking about what they've done, what their accomplishments are, what they're going to do, instead of just bashing the other candidate? And that's one of the things that I've always been frustrated by politicians when you're watching them speak and they're talking about why they should be elected. It should be about why you're so good, Yeah. And let us know what you've done, what you've accomplished, what you're going to continue to accomplish. You can mention your opponent every once in a while. That's fine to build a contrast there. But to just dwell on one person and say that's why it's like, President Trump is not in office right now. There's a reason why Vice President Harris and her supporters want to just mention him, though, because if they didn't mention him, they'd have to talk about themselves. And I don't think the American people have had a very good time over the last couple of years with those two in office.
Right. There's been a lot of discourse being had about Kamala Harris coming out with policies and plans. And then you hear people on the right say, well, then you're vice president currently. Why can't you enact these right now? Is there a certain level of power that a vice president has where they can't enact these policies? Or how do you respond to that?
Well, I would say that whoever's vice president under Joe Biden is probably the most powerful vice president in American history.
Okay.
Because we all saw Joe Biden at that debate, and we've all seen that he's basically been hiding out since that debate. I mean, he gave a speech, obviously, at the convention, but his profile has been pretty low. So I would think a vice president would be able to get a lot done under those circumstances. And look at the results right now. Yeah. They're not good, and everybody's paying a lot more for everyday items. Inflation's out of control. I mean, I think a lot of people on the world stage are looking at us as kind of a weak country at this moment, which is very unfortunate, and we need to turn that around.
Yeah. Speaking of optics, both at the RNC and the DNC, lots of celebrities, lots of musical performances. Is this a normal thing at Democratic and Republican national conventions? And why are there so many appearances at these?
Yes, it's a typical thing to bring celebrities out. I remember those various appearances through the years. I still remember Clint Eastwood coming up from Mitt Romney, and there's the back and forth. And of course, the reason why this is done is because people want their conventions to be watched, and people will not turn the dial if they see Clint Eastwood. If they see some governor from Michigan, let's just say, or wherever, they're gonna I'll turn to something else. So they bring the celebrities out, both Republicans and Democrats do, because they want to increase the viewership. And of course, Hulk Hogan came out and gave a big speech for President Trump, and it's entertaining to watch this stuff. And of course, these are made for TV events. So, we'll see who the Democrats continue to bring out as the next couple of days unfolds.
Yeah, sure. Well, last minute of this first segment right here. Any final words to wrap up what we've been hearing and what we've been seeing out at the Democratic National Convention?
No, I just, this race is a roller coaster, goes up and down. And right now, this is the Democrats' opportunity to present their case to the people of our country. And but this time will pass, and they'll have to debate, and we'll see what happens during the debate.
Perfect. Plenty more to talk about when we come back. We're going to talk about Senator McClure's experience out at the Illinois State Fair, some bills that he's gotten signed into law, and more here on this WTIM morning show. Thanks so much to our live stream sponsors, People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. You're listening to WTIM, your information station.
Your information station, WTIM. Radio gets results.
Miller Media Group Advertising works for Taylorville Estates. Here's Administrator Tony Clark.
In the past year, we have doubled our census. So that's been impacted mainly by the radio advertising. That is where we do the majority of our advertising, and our census definitely shows that it works. They lead us in the right direction for the season changing, and they anticipate our upcoming needs before we even have to tell them what they are. We've had consistent growth over the past 12 months. Like I said, we doubled in our census, and that's been the first time in 43 months since prior to COVID that we've gotten to where now we have a waiting list for people to come. So advertising on the radio really does have an impact.
Gets results.
If you're looking for a local, full or part-time job in Central Illinois, there's an easy place to go to find current job openings. It's IllinoisJobPost.com. That's IllinoisJobPost.com. You'll find jobs available near you. And the best part is that it's free for candidates to access 24/7. If you want a local job when you don't have to spend a lot of money on gas to get to, then you want access to IllinoisJobPost.com to check out current local job openings. That web address again is IllinoisJobPost.com. Another service from your friends at the Miller Media Group.
There's only one Central Illinois radio station that brings you the memories of the 60s and early 70s as you are cruising down the streets of your hometown. The dial position is 98.3 FM. The station is 98.3 WSVZ. From Macon to Vandalia and I-55 to I-57, cruising 98.3 plays the hits from early Elvis in the 60s to the British invasion of the Beatles, Herman's Hermits, and many more from the 1960s. Then we swing into the early half of the 1970s with artists like the Guess Who, the Doobie Brothers, and Elton John. Every song brings back something you remember about growing up. Set a button and crank up the station, playing good time rock and roll from the Tower of Power, cruising 98.3 WSVZ.
Find out about available units at Taylorville's Valley View Mobile Home Park, 913 North Taylorville Boulevard, by clicking the Valley View Mobile Home Park icon on the obits page of TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
This is Dr. Bill Byers, and I'm excited to announce the expansion of my Stealth Wellness business. Not only do I do functional medicine testing, blood work, and nutrition, but I've added red light therapy and sauna therapy to benefit those of Central Illinois. To learn more, click on my banner ad at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back into WTIM, your information station in the midst of our WTIM morning show with Illinois State Senator Steve McClure of the 54th District. In that first half, we talked all about the Democratic National Convention, and now we're going to move into some of the bills you've had successfully signed into law here recently. We've spoke extensively about these bills, Senator McClure. What's recently had success?
Yeah, so 6 of my bills were signed into law,
Wow.
including a bill to save the Shelby County Rescue Squad and to make sure that they are authorized under our laws to continue operating and provide benefits for members.
Wow.
My bill was signed into law that makes it so that driver's ed classes will now teach what the placards indicate for vehicles that are transporting hazardous materials.
Yeah.
I think it's important for students to know when they are on the road with vehicles that could be extremely deadly, even if there's just a minor collision. So that's important. My bill to allow for students that have been abused to remain in their school without having to move schools just because DCFS took them out of the home of one parent and put them in the other parent's home who lives outside the school district.
Wow.
I thought that was important to get passed because I don't want a student to be punished because they are reporting horrible abuse that they've endured.
Right.
And then they have to go to a different school and lose all their friends, lose all their teachers. So that was also signed into law. And then another bill, which was a sort of a bill to protect families, was we had a lot of spray that was being done in the yards and in the pools, and sometimes in cases where kids were playing in the yard, there was spray being done by our government to spray pesticides. And this happened with a state agency that was doing this across the state. and sometimes it certainly happens with our local governments as well. But my bill was signed into law that says that if you're going to spray pesticides in a public right-of-way anywhere in the city limits, you've got to notify the public in advance so that they can make sure to not have their kids playing in the yard, or make sure their pools are covered, or make sure that they can take whatever precautions they wish, because the stuff that was being sprayed by our state without any warning was stuff that was so nasty it could kill trees and stuff like that. It was a pesticide cocktail. And so, I think people should have warnings before these things are sprayed. And so that's what they're going to get now because of this new bill. And then a couple other bills. One was a bill that allows for the repair of historic bridges to make sure that they are still safe. And also a bill to help wastewater utility customers to kind of help them with property taxes by making the facilities have to pay a little bit less in property taxes. And of course, that will be passed on to the consumers. So those are the bills that got signed into law recently. Every single bill was an idea from a constituent. I didn't think of any of these myself. And so I'm very proud of the fact that despite the fact that I'm in the super minority, I'm able to pass a lot of legislation, and my constituents essentially have a voice in the Capitol. Yeah. And I look forward to continuing to collect ideas for the next spring to get some more bills passed.
Yeah, 6 bills, an unbelievable number there. And congratulations to you, Senator. All these bills, like you said, so constituent driven there. It feels like it's going to help a small portion of people, but then all of a sudden you start to think of, the Shelby County Rescue Squad is here for everyone. That needs to be continued. And for driver's ed and all of that education and spraying pesticides, they're all helping out, of course, the individual that brought it to you, and then it's extending out easily to the rest of the public there. So I'm really loving to hear all about those. State Senator McClure, tell me about your time at the Illinois State Fair. You were out there quite a few of those days.
I was out there almost every day, and luckily there was no day where there was extreme rain.
Yeah.
I was certainly hot, very hot on Republican Day. It was very humid and hot, but despite the fact that there was some rain in the morning, it cleared up, and we were able to have a great day with a really good turnout of a lot of people that are excited about the election. So I'm hoping that we have a record attendance at the State Fair because of the weather. Yeah. And lots of concerts. The Lil Wayne concert broke the all-time attendance record.
Awesome.
For a State Fair act, which is ironic, by the way, because this was on Democrat Day, and a lot of Democrats were celebrating that he was there, and they had some after parties that were hosted by state representatives and things. But as we know, Lil Wayne endorsed President Trump in the last election, so It's kind of ironic that they were all, acting like he was a big Democrat when in fact he supported the Republican nominee for president in the last election. So a lot of fun. I'm glad that Lil Wayne broke the record, and I'm glad that so many people were able to enjoy the fair this year. I certainly did. But it's tiring. I got to tell you, it's a tiring thing to go to the fair a lot, just because of you got to park, you got to walk to the fair. It's big fairgrounds to walk through, but I enjoyed every year, and I went to more concerts I'd ever gone to this year, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, really glad to hear that. Music sounded like it was great. The food, I know, for one, was really great, and attendance was awesome out there. So absolutely all great things to hear. Senator McClure, we had about a minute and a half left, but you're coming to Taylorville soon. What are you doing here, and when?
That's right. I think it's important for me to be around the district as much as possible, and so we're doing a 54th district tour, a stop in all 10 counties I represent, and it will be on September 10th at Nesty's Burger Joint in Taylorville, 5 to 6 p.m. It's a free event. It's essentially just kind of an open forum that anybody can come in and we can just talk. I'll just be hanging out. And if you want to talk about a bill idea or talk about an issue that you're concerned about, or ask some questions or get some updates, or just come meet me and say hi, anything is acceptable. We just can't talk about political things because it's a state event, so I can't talk about who I'm supporting for this office or that office. But everything else we can talk about. It's a free event, and I look forward to seeing people there, and I look forward to having some food there too.
Absolutely, we're excited to have you into Taylorville, and we got to get you a horseshoe or something when you're at Nesty's. Senator McClure, thank you so much for taking the time being here with us as always.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Illinois State Senator Steve McClure of the 54th District on our WTIM morning show today. Thank you all for tuning in.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5 W298 CD Shelbyville, 107.9 W300 EH Payne and Nokomis.
This hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. The Democrats spent some time waxing nostalgic at their